President Trump's first visit to the Indo-Pacific region in his second term, and I think that the region has been somewhat uneasy about the U.S. role in the region. Many U.S. allies and partners have been battered by the tariffs of the Trump administration. And I think that there's been some uncertainty about where the Indo-Pacific ranks in the Trump administration's priorities. So this is an important visit for President Trump to signal that the United States remains very committed to the Indo-Pacific region and wants to be engaged both in the security sphere, but also in particular the economic sphere. And I think that's where the tensions have been quite high and the uncertainty. And President Trump has said that he reached some agreements with Southeast Asian countries on trade when he was in Malaysia. Now he is in Tokyo, and then of course he will be going to Korea. So we will see how many of these agreements are finalized. If the agreements are not finalized, then there could be a return to the very high tariffs that President Trump announced in April on what he called Liberation Day. So I think that this visit is undoubtedly welcome, but it just remains to be seen whether countries in the region are reassured by President Trump's exchanges and interactions with them. And then we'll see, of course, after he goes to Korea, whether he has a successful meeting with Xi Jinping. And I think all eyes in the region are going to be watching what comes out of that meeting. We have heard from the U.S. Treasury Secretary that there has been some understandings that were reached in the pre-meetings, and the U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent met with his Chinese counterpart, He Feng, and they have prepared what Secretary Bessent referred to as a framework agreement that will be given to both leaders to essentially bless and then perhaps announce at the summit. And according to the United States, China has agreed to defer the very complicated and far-reaching in terms of its impact rare earth export licensing scheme, to defer that for approximately 1 year. So that would be certainly very welcome by companies around the world who are not receiving rare earth magnets in a timely manner. I think one of the really important outcomes might be a deal on fentanyl and the tariffs that are associated with them. So President Trump imposed 20% additional tariffs on China because of its involvement in the Chinese companies selling chemical precursors, particularly to Mexico, that are then used for the manufacture of fentanyl, which is an opioid that is killing many Americans. And there has been some law enforcement cooperation between the United States and China, but the United States has refused so far to reduce those tariffs. So I think what we might see come out of the meeting in South Korea is an agreement by China to take more action to combat the fentanyl trade, and the United States potentially either reducing or freezing the 20% tariffs. The United States has been asking China to purchase agricultural goods, and particularly soybeans. This is the first year in 7 years that China has not purchased soybeans from the United States. And American farmers are hurting, and that is politically costly for President Trump. So the United States is looking for China to make those purchases. And I think that that probably will happen. And of course, China wants to get some things out of this agreement. So in addition to the reduction of the fentanyl-related tariffs, there is, I think, the possibility that the United States will freeze going forward its export controls on Chinese semiconductors. I have not heard that those will be rolled back, but of course, no deal is final until President Trump actually meets with Xi Jinping in South Korea.